Thanks for joining us today. My name is Shannon. I'm the Volunteer and Community Engagement Coordinator here at Treehouse. And today we are outside because we're going to be talking about our Working Cats program. And our cats do their work outside, so we figured that would make the most sense. Joining us today is Paul Nickerson, our Community Cats Field Specialist, and he's going to be talking to us about our Cats at Work program. What is it for? Why do we have it? You'll get a chance to see where our on-site colony lives, and you won't actually be meeting our working cats because they are feral, so that wouldn't go very well. But we'll show you some pictures, talk about where they came from, why they were a good fit. So we are going to turn it over to Paul now. Good.
Hi there, I'm Paul. I manage the Cats at Work program here, and a little background of the Cats at Work program. The Cats at Work program's at least 10 years old. It was started because people at Treehouse noticed that there was a natural, there were businesses that were contacting us that wanted to adopt house cats to put in their factories for rat control and rodent control. And we also had an abundance of feral cats that we didn't know what to do with, that needed to be rehomed. And typically feral cats are the first ones to get euthanized because they don't have a home. Nobody wants them as a house pet. So they don't make appropriate house pets. So it was a natural marriage of the two situations, and the program has been thriving ever since. Chicago has, I think it's the 7th year in a row that we've been rated number 1 in our rat problem. So there's always a big supply of clients that want the cats, and there's always feral cats that need to be relocated. And something about the cats that we get for the program, we actually don't just go and scoop up a bunch of cats off the street just because they're there. They actually need to be relocated. Every feral cat, it's best for them to stay in the environment that they were born in and born and raised, because that's their home territory, and it's very disruptive for them to move them and relocate them. So we only take cats that absolutely positively need to be relocated. And we get calls all the time about people saying, hey, I have a group of cats, I want to give them to you for the feral cat program. And we try to work with them to try and find other alternatives to keep them in place to where they live now, or whether finding an alternative feeder or something else to keep them in place. Now, if the cats absolutely positively need to be relocated, oftentimes we'll relocate them and put them at a location where people will take care of them on an ongoing basis. And it's the second best option for the cats, the best option being keeping them in place. So, and it works really well. Since the inception of the program, we've placed over 1,000 cats in the Cats at Work program.
Wow. So a little bit about the cats that we have here at Treehouse. I want to show you guys our 3 cats, and they have been here since February. Here we have Gilmore Girl. And then there's Pavlov's cat. And our 3rd working cat is Penelope. And these 3 have been here, like I said, since February. And Paul, if you can tell us a little bit about where these cats came from and why we chose them.
Sure. The people that turned them over to us, they came from a business that was being shut down here in the city. They attempted to try to find other caretakers nearby. Not only shut down, but being demolished. So the home they lived out of and the location they lived out of was disappearing. So we felt, because we've been open over 2 years here at our new facility, and we've had a rat problem here. And we discussed about getting feral cats for our own parking lot. And it just came along that these were a great fit based on age and everything else. So we acclimated them in our shelter that someone donated the time and materials to build the shelter for us, and it kind of mimics our new facility with the build-out windows and everything. And the cats really like it. They've been here since February, and we see them on the security cameras in the middle of the night chasing things in the parking lot and everything. They're not home right now, but it's a great house. It's shaded, so it keeps them a little cooler in the summertime. So.
Yeah, so this shelter was funded and built by Eric Anderson and the EA Construction Company with additional support from one of our longtime donors, Chris Collins. And it was completed actually in the fall of 2019. So we were just waiting for the right placement to come along. And we're going to take a look at some of the features of this shelter. So follow us on over here.
So it is a tight space in here. So we were limited on the amount of space we can work with. And these are the insulated shelters that we build for the feral cats that we place out in the field. And each shelter has a heating pad. And because it's a tight space, we didn't have the room to put 3 of these shelters. I like to put a shelter for every cat. Because it's a tight space, K&H makes these fabric shelters. So we use this as the 3rd shelter for the cats, and there's a heating pad in this one as well. We lined it with straw, and there's a heated water bowl. It keeps the water from freezing in the wintertime. Everything's plugged in. It's unplugged now for summer. And I stapled these purr pads to the shelf so that the cats like to it looked like this when it was new, but the cats like to dig their claws into it and make a little nest out of it. And as you can see, they're loving it. So yeah, it's a great shelter.
And we also have around this side a little trap door where the cats can enter, where we can refill water bowls and place their food. So, Paul, if you want to come back out here when you're ready. And here you can see it's placed just inside our parking lot. So we have our shelter facility right over here, and then we can care for the cats right here. So Paul, why don't you tell us a little bit about what adopting a working cat involves?
So we get multiple inquiries a week of people that want to get cats. And what I do is I get their information and schedule a site visit to take a look at their property, but I also like to talk about the program in person with them when I do the site visit, and I explain what's required to take care of the cat and what the responsibilities are. But I also look for an appropriate area to house the cats or place the cats on their property. I try to look for preferably under a back deck or something, or in a disused gangway or something, someone with really low traffic. And what I usually say is I like to choose a place that the cats would choose themselves. The feral cats typically live in a crawl space or in an abandoned garage or under a deck somewhere, and I try to use those choices as my first choices. I try to avoid putting cats in an open yard. We acclimate them in dog crates for 21 days, and I don't like to set the dog crates up in an open yard just because cats would choose to live in having seclusion. I've had people where they've built a structure for them out of lattice material if it was more in the open and gives them more privacy, and I've had some really good success with that, but if it's just in the open, I try not to do that.
Yeah. So aside from having to have the right kind of site, what else does, when you talk about these responsibilities, what are those responsibilities?
So they have to feed the cats twice a day. There's certain things I call creating dependencies. The cats become dependent on certain things that we do. They're wild animals and they can choose to live wherever they want. So the food is the most important thing they become dependent on. So they have to feed the cats twice a day on their schedule. They also become dependent on the warm houses, the heated shelters that we provide for them. And they also become dependent on their relationship, which we strike up with them. So we recommend people try to socialize with them as they're in the acclimation period and everything. And all those three things go a long way to keeping the cats around. And then the responsibility is feeding them twice a day. They need to, if the cats get sick, after that, up until you release the cats in the acclimation period, if they get sick, we will treat them. But once the cats are released, it's the responsibility of the caretaker. If they get sick or injured, they are responsible for trapping the cat, and then they take it to a vet. We have a list of private vets that will see feral cats that we usually send to people.
Okay, great. So you talked a little bit about this acclimation process. So why don't you kind of walk us through, someone gets a placement from day one, what happens, what's the process?
So when we do the placement, I use really large dog crates, and we'll combine at least two of them. If there's up to 3 cats, we'll use 2 crates. If there's more than 3 cats, we'll add additional crates to create a bigger enclosure. And we zip tie them together to create a big enclosure, put those shelters in there, set them up with a water bowl, show the client how to feed them and everything. And they need to stay completely confined for 21 days. After the 21-day period, they release them, and the cats start roaming. I recommend that clients give them lots of space. Don't try to follow them. Just let them start doing their thing, and just give them a lot of privacy. The most precarious time for the cats is when you first release them from the acclimation crates. They're still anxious. It's not their territory yet, so they feel threatened by the smallest of things. So I just tell people to give them a lot of space when they first release them. And mostly the biggest thing with that acclimation period is just feed them on a schedule. Get them, and there's a litter box because they're going to be confined for 21 days, so they have to clean the litter box. Something about the litter too. What makes the cats most successful at deterring rats is their predator pheromones. It's been studied, and rats will not share their territory with predators. So in the litter box is used cat litter that has cat pee, which also has predator pheromones as part of it. So we recommend people take that used kitty litter from the litter box and dump it down the rat burrows in the area, and it'll make the rats abandon the burrow. And I've had clients contact me. One in particular said that she poured the kitty litter down the burrow the first time, and they were standing there and they saw the rats come shooting out of there because they smell these predator pheromones and they know it's not good. But it helps to, the cats create a territory with these predator pheromones, and the rats will stay outside their territory, and that's why they're so successful at deterring rats. Whether it be poisons like the city uses, or even the cats killing rats actively, it creates a vacuum in nature. When you kill something in nature and remove it, it creates an opening for other rats to move in and replace them. And what stops that vacuum effect from happening is the predator pheromones, and the cats create a territory.
Yeah, so here at Treehouse, I know, Paul, you've mentioned the reason we needed our own on-site colony is because we were having rat activity in the alleyways and over here along our fence line, right?
Yeah, along the fence line up until the cats were replaced. They were replaced in February, but there used to be rat burrows along the fence line, and on the outside there was some big burrows next to this telephone pole, and all those burrows are gone now. I don't know that any of us ever actively poured the kitty litter down the burrows, but just the fact that the cats are here, and we've seen them on the security camera where they're along the cats are actually along the fence line actively working over there, so they've done their job, and we're rat-free now. So, and it's not just us that are benefiting from it. The apartment buildings, and there's some commercial buildings across the alley from us that are benefiting from it tremendously.
Yeah. So in terms of our own colony, what was our acclimation process like here?
So we acclimated them. We enclosed, and it was February, so I wouldn't recommend enclosing them in a structure like this in the middle of summer. It would be too hot for them. But this is a screen material, so it gives air circulation. And we enclosed them in here for the acclimation period. If you just think about this being the dog crates, we enclosed them in for 3 weeks, and they were ready to be released. When the 3-week period came up, they were pretty antsy to be released, and then we released them. it's funny. I released them, and then I went inside our wellness center and just sat in the window, and I filmed them coming out, and they just kind of like, only one was came out initially, and just kind of jumped down, explored the area, and then jumped back in. So it's kind of cute to see them emerge, and that was daytime. But we've since seen video footage of our security cameras where the cats are just having a great time in the middle of the night in our empty parking lot.
And how did we, once we released the cats, how did we kind of train them to keep coming back? I believe there was some kind of bell action.
That's true. So what we recommend doing when they do a placement is people condition them to a sound, whether it be get a bell or jingle your keys or pick something to say, like here kitty kitty, or you know, it's lunchtime or whatever. And they become conditioned to that, and it keeps them close to home, and they'll be waiting to hear the bell to be fed, and they'll come running to be fed. So we did use a bell. Yeah.
Awesome. For people who are considering getting a working cat colony, they think it might work for them, what would be like some of the main things that they should think about to see if it's a good fit for them?
It is a permanent adoption. It's not adoption in a traditional sense where you're adopting an animal for your house, but it is a permanent adoption, so it's not something that we can do temporary. So once you adopt these cats, they're going to be with you for the duration of your time at the property, and if you move from that property, whether you're responsible for finding a caretaker to take over the caretaking duties.
Yeah, that's a good point. Any other things to consider?
I would suggest having a heart into it too. I think a lot of people will get them thinking, oh, problem solved or whatever. And if your heart isn't into it, I think sometimes people may not think about the long-term aspects of it, perhaps. And it is a commitment to taking care of the cats on an ongoing basis. You know, it might be a good segue. I got involved with this program 12 years ago when the program was new, because I had a rat problem at my house, and I tried everything traditionally that people try, like poisons and wiring along the fencing and everything, and I couldn't solve it. And I read an article about this new program and decided to give it a shot. So I've had my cats for 12 years. They live out of my garage, and they've been immensely successful at cleaning up the neighborhood.
Awesome. And earlier you mentioned that you encourage people who adopt working cats to have a relationship with their working cats, and you mentioned socializing with them. So what happens then if one of those cats does become socialized?
Quite frankly, the cats sometimes, my cats in my garage are pretty tough customers. They will let me pet them, but it's usually only 2 or 3 times on the head, and then they'll like give me a swat. So, but that's not the normal. Normally, they will socialize to the people that feed them. I just recommend people continue to enjoy that relationship with them. If they become too friendly, and I avoid trying placing cats that are younger than 6 months old. If they're too young when they're placed, they befriend everybody, and members of the public feel compelled to rescue cats when they see them running around, especially smaller cats. And if they're too friendly with people, you have people that are trying to rescue them and bring them in or whatever. Everybody's part of the placement process. The cats are microchipped, and I recommend that everybody register the chip under their own name, because if the cat does get picked up and brought to animal control or to a private vet, most of the time they'll notify us, because most of the chips are implanted by us. But I recommend that the clients register the chips, because if they do get picked up, they can get their cat back. You know, even if a private citizen brings it to a private vet, the vet's going to contact the person when they scan the microchip that's registered on the chip. And it's somewhat of an investment to get the cats to begin with, and they're protecting their investment by registering the chip.
Right. And correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, but all of the cats that we adopt out, including working cats, are microchipped, right?
Yeah, correct.
Correct.
But to go back to what do we do with socialized cats, it's up to the clients to their cat, but we try to encourage them if they're too friendly. And in fact, there's one later this week that I'm probably going to pick up that became too friendly. And if they're willing to relinquish them to us, we'll put them up for adoption in our adoption center. The problem with that is they're usually very fractious during their time with us. They're either in a trap or they're post-surgery. They're either in a cage until they get placed. And feral cats, if they are social, they're not going to show that social side when they're caged up like that. They're going to be fractious. And, we do try to temperament test everybody to make sure we're not placing friendly cats in the tree. But most of the time, they're just too fractious to see their social side until they settle in at a client's house. After a few weeks or so, then they start rubbing up against people and everything. So, a placement I just did recently, the cat, she sent me a video of the cat like rubbing up against her. You can pet scratch his head and everything. So Friday I'm going to pick it up and bring it back, and we'll put it up for adoption.
Awesome. So we are taking questions live. If you have any questions for Paul or about our program, go ahead and send them in. In the meantime, Paul, why don't you tell us a little bit about what your average day looks like working with Cats at Work clients?
Since the pandemic, we've been getting an increasing amount of calls for Cats at Work cats. So there's a lot of site visits that go on. It's only 11 o'clock a.m. and I've already been on 2 site visits this morning. And, there's probably at least 3 placements a week. So I do a lot of site visits, a lot of office work, emails and everything, trying to keep up with everybody. But a lot of, picking up cats and transporting cats or dropping cats off here and there too. So, yeah.
Okay. Any fun working cat stories that you'd like to share with us?
There's frequently we get these. A lot of times, I recommend people, if they have the resources to do it, to put a Wi-Fi camera or something where the cats are, so they can monitor the food and make sure everybody's eating and make sure nobody's sick or whatever. But frequently, we'll get these videos. People will send videos, and I just got I was at a site visit, and when I do these site visits to get people talking, I always ask them how they heard about the program. And this site visit yesterday, the woman said, from these people down the street here, they built their own cat house, and they built it to mimic their own house. So, and I knew who they were talking about. And these people had a Wi-Fi camera that pointed under the deck where they had a problem with rats in the past. And some of the funny, not funny, but just you could hear the cats doing their job. Let me put it that way. I won't go into detail, but I get videos like that all the time. Plus, we see security camera of our own cats playing around the parking lot and chasing shadows and stuff. So it's stuff like that.
So what do you suppose our working cats are up to right now?
I've seen them down the alley, and I think oftentimes when you first release cats, the first thing they do is try to find other hiding places in the neighborhood. And we just opened it, so we know they're not in there. But we feed them in here, and they do come back twice a day to eat their food. So we know they're still here, and they probably live out of the shelters at night. But I've seen them go down the alley and go across the alley into properties that are across from us, and they probably have some porches or something that they hang out under, where it's shaded, nice and cool and stuff. So
yeah,
oftentimes there's multiple feeders in the neighborhood too. When people start seeing them, we don't recommend it, but it's hard to stop. So there might be somebody down the alley that might be feeding them too, and it's a cat-friendly yard, so they might have a summer home in the Hamptons down the alley. Frequently,
Awesome. So we have a question here from Kim, and Kim wants to know, do working cat structures keep out possums and skunks?
No, and that's a great question. When you feed the cats twice a day, we recommend that you pick the food up after about 30 minutes or so. If you keep the food around all the time, a lot of people get a gravity feeder where they'll just pour a bag of dry food in and it comes out at the bottom and the cats nibble on it all day long or whatever. Not having food available all the time keeps the cats closer to home, but also it keeps nuisance animals like raccoons and skunks and everything away. They won't see that as a food source. And if you do have problems with raccoons and skunks and possums coming around and eating the cat food, I recommend feeding before sundown, because all those nuisance animals come out after sundown. So if the food is missing after sundown, those animals are going to find a new food source and not congregate there. So.
Awesome. So we're going to stay on for a few more minutes just to see if anyone else has any other questions. Our Cats at Work program is part of our Community Cats program. And one of the things you just recently talked about, Paul, was neighbors interacting with cats. And I know that that's a big topic in our Community Cats program, is communicating with neighbors. So how do we kind of make sure our neighbors are involved when we place a new colony?
You know, we have a sample letter that we give out that the clients can fill in the blank, you know, their name and their contact information and everything. We recommend people notify their neighbors, let them, like I said before, people are compelled to rescue cats when they start seeing them around. So if you can let everybody know that the cats are coming or are there now, when they see them, they'll understand they're there for a purpose and that they're not to be touched and they're feral cats, and you know. So, but we recommend, and we will mitigate issues with neighbors too. If you have a neighbor, it doesn't happen frequently, but there's been times in the past where there's a neighbor and it doesn't like the cats being there or whatever, and we'll try to work and mediate the situation between the caretaker and the neighbor.
Great. I'm not seeing any other questions right now. So, Paul, for anyone watching who's interested in, you know, having a working cat colony of their own, or they think it might be a good fit for someone they know, how can they follow up? What should they do next?
The best way to inquire about it is send an email to our info email address. That's info@treehouseanimals.org. So it's treehouse animals, and animals is plural. .org, and they'll pass the message along to me, and then I'll give you a call, schedule a site visit, and we can discuss the program and see if the property is appropriate.
Okay, awesome. Any other thoughts you wanted to share today, Paul?
I'd just like to say that it's the cats that are the real winners.
Okay, well, thank you so much to everyone who joined us live today. If you do have any follow-up questions, again, you can contact us at the information on your screen here, 773-262-4000, extension 101 will really get in touch with anybody who can answer your questions. They'll direct you to the right person. Or email us at info@treehouseanimals.org. Thanks so much, Paul, for joining us today.
Thank you.